Welcome to episode 224 of Reclaiming the Faith. Today, I'm interviewing my wife, Stephanie Baker. So many of y'all have heard from her as we go through 1 Corinthians, but maybe you don't really know her. So that's what we're going to get to do today. If you're blessed by the episode, please consider leaving a positive rating and review on whatever podcatcher you're listening to this on. Subscribe to it if you don't mind. Share it with a friend. That'd be really helpful. Also, I really want to encourage y'all to check out Stephanie's podcast called The Faithful Podcast with Stephanie Baker. And for this one, really want to encourage y'all to listen to her episode with her sister, Leanna Ward. All right. Well, if you want to find links to any of my resources, you can go to my website, philsbaker.com. If you have any questions that you want me to answer, topics you want me to cover, feel free to send those to me over social media, or you can email me at philsbaker@protonmail.com. Well, without any further delay, let's get into episode 224. All right, Steph, I'm really excited about this episode. I'm excited for people, especially those at our new church who haven't got to hear from you as much,
right?
To get to hear your story.
Okay.
So let's do that. And oftentimes as we talk today, I'm going to reference your sister, Leanna.
Okay.
And she's 5 years older than you, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she's had a big influence on your life. Mm-hmm. One of the things we talk about concerning discipleship is like, you don't get to choose who follows you.
Right.
People are just following you. Mm-hmm. And so what really matters is like how you're leading, even if you don't want to be in that position.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think your sister's done like a really good job of being a role model for you. Mm-hmm. And so being that she was 5 years older than you, she became a Christian before you.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, but it was with y'all. Mm-hmm. And so tell me a little bit about you coming to faith in Jesus as a kid.
So I grew up in church. We were attending faithfully 3 times a week, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and then special events beyond that, since I was a baby. And then I remember at like 5 years old, there was a couple of my friends, I think I was 5, who decided that they wanted to become Christians and they wanted to follow Jesus, and they did the whole like altar call. They walked forward and I went with them. And I remember getting like a lot of affirmation in that, like, oh, so good. I think my parents took me out to dinner at Captain D's afterward, which for those that don't know Captain D's, it's like fish fast food kind of thing. I don't know. It's
kind of like Long John Silver's.
Yeah, Long John Silver's is pretty comparable, but there was one right by the church. So I remember thinking like, I'm good. I'm pretty good. And then at some point, I think it was the summer after my freshman year, I believe, and was at church camp and good old Trinity Pines. And I remember feeling like for the first time, just a lot of things happening in my heart. And I didn't know what was going on, but I just remember being like, something's going on. So being like a good Baptist kid, you've already been baptized. Now this is like rededicating your life. And so I thought, oh, this is what this is. It's rededicating my life. And I don't know, if you didn't grow up in a Baptist church, I don't know that it's a big deal, but like, it was all the time people were, I guess it just meant like I'm getting serious with God again, rededicating your life. So
it was like almost part of a lot of the altar calls. If you want to receive Christ or you want to rededicate your life, come on down.
Yeah, the invitation was always there. And in fact, like I remember times where my parents probably thought I was like misbehaving or maybe whatever. And they'd be like, don't you want to rededicate your life?
Give you a little elbow nudge.
Yeah. But I remember having like just a lot going on in my heart, in my head, and like, okay, this must mean I need to rededicate my life. And then I just remember coming back from camp and like, okay, I think I'm trying to remember if that Sunday morning, if I like made some sort of profession to the church. I've rededicated my life, whatever. I don't remember that if I did or not. I just remember a Sunday afternoon, like taking a shower and just getting like really overwhelmed that I don't think I ever really was following Jesus. I don't think I ever really made that decision for myself. I think I need to do that in an official kind of way. Like I want to proclaim this in front of the church. And so that Sunday night, we were at our pastor's house, and I remember being like, pulling him to the side and saying like, I need to talk to you. And we were in like a laundry room, a back room or something. And
how old were you? Roughly.
I feel like I was 15 or 16.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, I think the date like just popped in my head of like July 11th, 1999. So I think whatever age I was at that point. But anyway, I just remember being like, I want to follow Jesus. I want this to be my decision. I don't want it to be anything to do with like, because I was raised in church or whatever. I want it to be something that I have made my own personal decision. And I remember going and telling the church this and kind of got like a mixed response. Like a lot of people were like, weren't you already a Christian? And because I wasn't like a terrible kid. Like I wasn't doing anything that the church members thought like, oh, she's a rebellious child.
You had one bad week.
I was 5 years old when that happened. Or no, less than that probably. Yeah. Anyway, that's a long story, but I was very mischievous for 1 week of my childhood. That's a story that gets repeated in my family. But yeah. And so but a lot of people were really excited for me. And I felt like I started reading my Bible. I started getting really serious with like understanding who God was. And it's funny that I felt like that was like going to such a deeper level. And like, now I'm like, wow, that was, I had so much to learn. And but that was, I would say, when I took it serious and when I decided that I wouldn't say I've done this perfectly, but that I was going to not care what other people thought, that I was going to follow Jesus.
Yeah. So you graduate high school.
Yeah.
You go to Texas A&M.
Whoop.
Yeah. For a couple of years. And during that time, you became part of an organization called Youth Impact. Mm-hmm. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it was really cool. I actually went to summer before your freshman year. There's something called Fish Camp. And then there was a Christian camp called Impact Camp. And I'd always heard you're supposed to go to Fish Camp. And so I signed up for it. But then I also heard about Impact Camp. And I was like, I want to go to this. I want to meet Christians, get to know them. And I went to Impact first. And they were both within like the course of a week. And oh my gosh, like God was really speaking to me in that time. I remember like one of the nights, it was like they left the floor open after a service sort of thing or worship time, and they had people playing music and they just let people pray there. And I just remember praying for like 45 minutes by myself, and that had never happened in my life. And God was showing me a lot of things in my life that I needed to deal with. And he was kind of starting to show me this idea that I felt like, or I was feeling like God was saying, I want you to work with like inner city kids. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like I'm going to College Station. And I just kind of like filed that away in my brain. And then I went to Fish Camp. I did not love Fish Camp, for the record. I was like, these people are a lot more wild than I'm used to. So I kind of was like just surviving that, and then got home, and I stayed really close to the people that were in my impact group. And then we went to church together. And the first church I think I visited was Grace Bible Church in College Station, which is a pretty well-known church there. And they started talking about this ministry that they had that was called Youth Impact. And they worked with kids that lived in like project housing and low income areas. And the idea was that it's kind of like Big Brother, Big Sister sort of organization, but it's, very much Christian based. We would pick up the kids, bring them to the church and do like games and Bible study. And then they wanted us to be like discipling a kid outside of that time. Like during the week, you were supposed to sort of pick a kid that you felt a connection with and meet up with them, maybe do some Bible study and some tutoring and just kind of get to know them. And they really encouraged you to be very consistent with that. So I was like, this sounds amazing. Like this is inner city ministry, but not in a city. And I felt really strongly like this is where I'm supposed to go. And so the process to apply was more involved than I, had ever done anything. Like every other club I'd done in the past, you just sort of show up and you're there. But they had us fill out a very lengthy application, and we did interviews and all kinds of stuff. And they stressed to us, like, if you can't be consistent with this, then this may not be the right season for you. And I'm sure working with college kids, you get all levels of flakiness. But they were really big on that. And I think I may have been one of only a couple of people that started their freshman year. Most people, they were just putting the word out so early in the year that freshmen often didn't hear about it. So I started doing it and I loved it. Like I loved getting to know these kids. I was driving my parents' old Expedition at this point. So I was basically like a bus driver. I was picking up so many kids in my car. And this organization had long established relationships in this community or in these communities because it wasn't just one. And so parents trusted us and it was really great. I got eventually decided to work with a girl named Bree. And we ended up hanging out for 3 years. And it was just a really good time building that relationship, understanding that, like, even though I'm 18, like, I can start helping the next generation understand how to read the Bible and what it means to be a follower of Jesus and just doing things together, spending time together. Like on paper, we didn't make a whole lot of sense hanging out together, but, God had brought us together and she was a really sweet girl. And then just as a leader, they had Sunday night Bible study for us. We were supposed to prepare for it. Like we had to do our lesson and come in with notes and whatever. And I mean, they had high standards for us. And if you missed 2 of those Sunday night trainings in a semester, they would say, it sounds like, I mean, unless there's something serious going on, but it seems like you might be overcommitted. Do you need to reevaluate this and come back to it later because we need a high level of commitment? And so that was a really good thing for me to see that you can have high standards and high expectations of people and for the sake of your ministry and be kind and loving with it, but also like not just give in because, we want as many people here as possible.
Yeah. So you were at A&M for 3 years?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the summer before your 3rd year, correct me if I'm wrong, that you had an invitation to go to London.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to go to Speaker's Corner and to minister to Muslims.
Yeah.
With Jay Smith.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of like a side part of our ministry, but it was definitely a big part. So I went with like a Baptist mission organization. And that was really a cool thing because I think for the whole summer, I had to raise like $1,200. They really help support student missions. And this was so special to me.
You spent the whole summer.
Yeah, I was there I think I was there like June until the end of July. So probably like 8 weeks I was there. So we were part of an organization called Operation Mobilization. They're a big multinational organization, I believe. And they wanted us to specifically in London, they were focusing on Muslims that had come in from other countries oftentimes, and they were trying to build relationships and to share the gospel. And we lived in a church, so we slept on like wood floors basically with a sleeping bag. And no like air conditioning or anything, but it was really nice. I think it was good that we were in college and we didn't know any different. So, but I loved it. I built really, really deep relationships with the other people on my team. And during the week, what our weeks would often look like is we had a book table where we would set up like Christian books and like pamphlets.
Was this right at Speaker's Corner, or is just Hyde Park, or
down the street from Hyde Park?
Okay.
And somebody had donated like this little place to store our stuff, and we could set up on this corner. And they told us basically as women, like we weren't really supposed, I mean, we could hang out around there and they wanted us to pray for us. But what ended up happening is once they set up this table, the local mosque brought in men from their mosque to like heckle us and try and pull people away and try and undermine what we were doing. And so the men were often very disrespectful to women. So they kind of told us, you can stay if you want to, but it might be best if you go to a different sort of ministry. So what we decided to do was we walked down the street and Hyde Park is there. And they told us, like, just try and meet people. So, I mean, it's crazy. We were like 20 years old. We didn't know anything. We would go and they encouraged us just go up to women, especially ones that I guess you could see were like visibly Muslim because that was our target.
Hijab.
Maybe they're wearing hijab, burqa, and just try and start conversations. And these women were so friendly and so kind. And like sometimes we would come in and ask if we could like learn some Arabic from them because we learned a few words. I don't remember anything that's significant now of those words, but yeah, we would just sit down with them and we would visit. And a lot of times they would invite us to come back to their flat and have a meal. And they were so hospitable, so wonderful. And it wasn't like if we would tell them, you know, we were Christians and that we were from a local church, but we weren't sitting there trying to like get into arguments with them. We weren't trying to cause anything. We just wanted to let them know that we cared and like asked about their life because a lot of them were there for the summer from Saudi Arabia or, you know, Iraq or something. They were visiting for the summer. And a lot of times their husbands were, you know, big time into business. And so they were just left at home with the kids or maybe a sister or something all day long. And so we built some really good relationships. We got some people that wanted to meet up with us and they'd ask more questions and, you know, planting some seeds. We don't know where things went with that. But another side part of our ministry was like Sunday afternoons. We would go to, what's the name of that church? All Souls Church in London. And we'd go into their basement and we would get training how to work in Speaker's Corner from a guy named Jay Smith, which I don't know if he's still doing this. He's probably quite old at this point, but just a fascinating guy. And he had a team of people that he worked with. But Jay had built up a lot of relationships with the local Muslims, specifically people from local mosques. And they knew him and they respected him, but they also hated him in a lot of ways. Like he was very respectful to them, but they would give us some training on how to speak to Muslims and how to engage.
It's like with polemics and also some apologetics.
So I'd heard of apologetics before, you know, defending your faith, but polemics is more like learning to ask questions to make someone of another religion or another faith question, you know, asking the hard questions that make them confront things that maybe there's, you know, inaccuracies or maybe there's flaws in this and, you know, just thinking it through. So they kind of gave us some questions. And I learned that like the local mosque or the mosques oftentimes were basically saying a lot of lies about what Christians believe. And they were teaching them, they believe 3 gods. And they would learn different things to say to us to kind of stop us before we could start in conversation. And so we had to go in prepared, or else a lot of times you were really caught off guard and you couldn't get past, you know, the first few sentences. So Speaker's Corner is a place in Hyde Park. It's a section of Hyde Park where on Sunday afternoons at around 2, 4, something like that. People literally bring in like boxes and step ladders. It's where I was told this is where the getting on your soapbox comes from, that expression. But people would be on step ladders and they would just start talking about whatever. And crowds would kind of gather. People look at them. It's kind of a bunch of weirdos out a lot of times. But Jay Smith would set up his ladder and he would have conversations with people. He might be engaging with people from the local mosque, or he might be talking to people on his team, just trying to get points across. And so, yeah, there were a lot of interesting conversations. And there was one time where they had done a lot of prep work with us, and I knew where they were going with this. And I guess Jay was interviewing this guy or asking this guy questions. And the guy, I don't think he knew where Jay was going to go with it.
It's from your team.
From somebody from our team. Yeah. Somebody from like Jay's team specifically. Yeah. And so our job was kind of like just be in the audience, like mingle, maybe if you know the answer or whatever, say it out and start conversations with the people that are listening. And at some point, the guy was really struggling, and I don't know what the deal was, but I said the answer out loud, and Jay said, "Come on up here, you're going to talk." And it was terrifying. I don't like getting in front of people very much. Which is ironic because you became a teacher. I became a teacher. But I mean, those are teenagers. It's a little different. But I mean, everybody's eyes are on me. And there were a lot of like Muslim men in the audience that were paid by the local mosque to just heckle us and be mean. And they were saying some really hateful stuff. Like they would talk about, nobody as fat as you could get into heaven. You're so ugly. Like just terrible stuff where I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is really getting to me. Or how could God love someone that looks like you? Just awful stuff. But it also, I mean, I felt like this fire of like, I felt very emboldened by it. Like God was strengthening me in the midst of that, to say his truth and to speak the truth of the Bible. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So a little bit after that time, in your third year at A&M, you began... I was already done with my time at A&M. Oh, you were already done? Yeah, I was waiting to... I changed majors in college. So I did 3 years basically to get my prerequisites done for nursing school. And so then we went to London, and then I went to nursing school in Philadelphia. All right. So your sister also was a nurse. Mm-hmm. I guess she still technically is. Yeah. Yeah. She was doing ER stuff, but you decided to get into labor and delivery. Mm-hmm. And you did that for several years. And then you added on forensic nursing, and then became a nurse practitioner. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, kind of like your sister was able to use a lot of her nursing stuff on the mission field when she, went out to Mozambique for 15 years. And we went there together 4 times. Mm-hmm. You want to speak to some of the times on the mission field where you were using some of your nursing? So one of the times that we went, we got to our trip lined up with a helicopter outreach from an organization called Mercy Air that's based in South Africa. My sister started a primary healthcare school in her area in Maramayo in Mozambique. And the helicopter would allow them to go out to these very remote villages out in the Delta. And so I was really excited when that lined up. We were able to go out. We went out for a few days, and it was just basically like we had a few people from a local hospital that helped out, and there were a few people on her team. But we went with like a backpack of supplies, and you go from, I don't know, maybe like 8 a.m. to about 5 p.m. I can't remember the exact hours, but when it was time to go, we had to go. And so we just did as much as we could do in those villages for the day. And I think I had just finished my nurse practitioner certificate, or my degree and my certification test. And I think my sister thought I was going to be more helpful on those, but I was seeing things I've never seen before, because the kinds of things that they were dealing with were so different from what we were seeing in primary care. And so there were a few times, I mean, there was the one that stuck out to me the most was there was this little girl sitting with like a capulana, like a piece of fabric, basically draped over her head and shoulders. And I don't think she was wearing anything under it. And she sat there patiently, basically until the very end, till we were able to get to her. And we were looking, nobody's speaking English, so Leanna and I can speak to each other and communicate. And I was like, Leanna, this girl is covered in flies. There are flies all over her. I don't know what's underneath that capulana, but something's bad.
You're not talking about tens, you're talking about hundreds.
Oh, yeah, like covering her. Not like she's a little dirty. Like there's something probably rotting under there. Yeah. And so when we get to her, we're like, oh, goodness. Because we go to take it off and I mean, just second, third degree burns all over her back and just start in various stages of healing. Her arms have contractures at the like elbow area where she's been burned before and it's healed, but not properly. So she doesn't have full use of her arms. There's scarring all over and it is literally covered in flies. Like we took the fabric off and the flies were so thick you couldn't even see the burns underneath. So we had to try and clean, but you can't clean when it's covered in flies. So we would pour some water to try and see, and they would come off. The flies would come off just long enough for the water to run off, and then they would come back right on. So we couldn't even clean her up very well. And it was clear, like, whatever we had in our backpack was not going to be useful for this girl. And we ended up talking to her family, and we found out she likely had epilepsy. It seemed like either that or some kind of, possibly demonic thing. The way they were describing, we were trying to figure it out, but it sounded a lot like the story in the Bible where
Mark 9.
Yeah, where the guy talks about his son that falls into the fire, gets has like a fit of some kind and falls into the fire. And, everything in Africa, like at the evening, it centers around the fire. So spending time around the fire. So it's not
at
weird.
Least in that part of Africa.
Yeah, sorry. In those remote villages, because that's the source of light. Yeah. So it wasn't weird that this kid is around the fire, but it was weird that she was on multiple occasions falling into this fire and having these severe burns. So we ended up having to say, we told the family she's going to need to go to the hospital, and the hospital is a helicopter right away. And the family had to gather some things. So and I think she only had her dad, but we told the helicopter pilot we need to come back first thing in the morning and get her and take her to the hospital. I don't think we had room in the helicopter to take her back that evening, and it didn't work for the family to go then. So we helped them gather up their stuff that they need. And hospitals are very different in those very remote areas in Mozambique. You often have to come in with your own like food supply because you probably aren't going to get fed meals. A lot of times they'll tell you need to go to the pharmacy and buy this stuff because we don't stock it in the hospital. But she had to go through some pretty intense recovery, but I think she was doing well afterward. But that was some of the craziest stuff. I've never seen burns like that, and felt so helpless. There was so little we could do because I could just imagine how much pain she must be in regularly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So something we kind of alluded to numerous times by using the word we and stuff like that. It's that we got married, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Just had our 18th anniversary.
Yeah.
So that puts us back being married in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you got right into the role of like being the wife of a pastor.
Right.
And I'm sure that's been pretty challenging for you at different times. A lot of spoken and unspoken expectations right?
Yeah.
Stuff from the outside, and then just kind of internal expectations we put on ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I'm curious if you could just talk for a little bit about what that's been like for you, just in general.
Yeah, that feels like a really loaded question. There's a lot
We
there.
can get into the particulars and later, but just kind of in general.
I mean, in general, I would say I don't think of myself as a shy person, but I can be at times. And so it's nice sometimes when people know who you are and they start conversations with you because they know Phil, and then you don't have to work as hard to meet people. But that side's really nice. I really enjoy getting to minister alongside you and like getting to know people and be a part of small groups. Like that stuff's been really, really good. Generally speaking, it can be really hard to see what happens behind the scenes, and to see people behave one way and then maybe it's different, how they behave around others. I don't know. I'm struggling with the general. I can be a little more specific if you'd like, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we started off at Rittenhouse Baptist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
But after 6 years, we decided to start a house church.
Yeah.
And that's very different than anything you had done before,
Right.
that I had done before. What were those 4 years like for you
For
in
house
a house
church?
church? And how did it impact the way that you view God and just Christianity in general?
Yeah. House church is something really special. It's hard sometimes, I'm sure, if people have kids that are, normal youth group age or things like that, because there's not going to be as much entertainment for the younger people. But when we first started, it was just you and me. We didn't even have our kids yet. So it was great. Like it was so nice to be a part of a community that really truly cared about each other. You notice when someone's not there. You feel a little bit more freedom to ask somewhat more personal questions of people, and they, you just know each other's lives so much more. And because it's not really a sermon being preached, you are studying the Bible a lot more for yourself, and you're learning how to, break down scripture and understand it. And there's a lot of application, and you're just hearing from a lot of voices in the room. It feels in a lot of ways you have a lot more ability to be not that you can't in a regular church, but it feels like it can be really spirit-led, and there's a lot more room. And if things go a little bit long, it feels like there's a little more grace in that because, the Spirit is moving and God is speaking through people. I really loved that time. It was really special. So.
Yeah. And, let's, do you want to talk about our Sunday night small group a little bit?
Yeah.
'Cause that kind of functions kind of like a house church as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. So after the house church thing, you started to feel like maybe you weren't supposed to be a head pastor. And that brought us to another church.
We'll come back to that one.
Okay. Well, I guess our small group, we started as a part of this church's, a couple of small groups at the church. And then when we left that church, it's stayed together. And so we've been through some hard stuff together that I feel like others may not understand, and we just kind of get it. And sometimes we have a bit of a dark sense of humor about it. Like we can laugh about things that really hurt us, but then we also can, in the same breath, pray deeply and sincerely for those that hurt us. And it's just been a really special group because now you've got have three different teachers, which is cool to see the different approaches to things, because I would say y'all teach each one of you very differently. And there's just been a lot of, like, there's been people that have come and gone over the years, but it's still stayed very, very close. And they've just been there for us in really hard times, and we've been able to be there for others. So
yeah. Well, you kind of alluded to the church hurt.
Yeah.
Which, we've seen at every step of the way.
Yeah.
Together, in varying degrees.
Mm-hmm.
But how has that been for you? How have you processed that? How has that church hurt affected, the way that you engage the world, engage church?
It's kind of like grief in a lot of ways, where you think you're done processing stuff, and sometimes things can come back to the surface. So at this point, I feel like I don't feel as much like anger or anything like that, but I am definitely more cautious because of it. We've had, different kinds of things that have happened. Like, one of the churches we were just having people like turn on us and telling stories, and, all kinds of things were coming out that were not true. So that built up a lot of distrust in me, and I was really, really mad for a while. But I've seen some people since that have hurt me, and I've realized I still love them. I still care about them. And I would say
that's mostly from that first church.
Yeah. And then with the other situation that was really painful, it felt like you were standing up for something that you felt very strongly about, and there was corruption, and to see that not only like swept under the rug, but like actively tried to stop that when you felt like you were doing the right thing, made me not want you to ever work at a church again. That was my request after we left that church. Like, please don't ever be on staff at a church, because not only are you having to find a new job, we have to find like basically a new community. And afterward, the things happened with the first church that we were at. I didn't ever question like not going to church, but there was a long time there after
19.
Yeah, after 2019, where we had other friends that had previously left that church, and they told me that they weren't really going to church very much, and I just could not wrap my head around that. And
Folks
then
in our Sunday night small group.
Yeah, and then I lived it, and I was like, I don't want to go into a church building. I don't. Our small group just picked right up and kept going, and so I didn't have any problem meeting with any of those people. Like, that was a source of extreme comfort. But something about going into a church building filled me with so much anxiety. And we're parenting our kids at that time. And so I'm like, I know it's important for them to be in church. Like, I know it's important for me to be in church. I hate this feeling. And we visited one church a while, just trying to keep our kids involved in youth stuff. And, we weren't even going to like the main service. We were just going to their small group that we knew all the people in, and loved there. People had come from our previous church, and many had gone over. But I still, even that made me really anxious. And I solidified that I didn't want you to work at a church, made it very, very clear in my mind that was not what I wanted. I didn't want to be a pastor's wife again. I didn't want your livelihood to be tied up in that. And I didn't want my community to be affected by knowing about corruption. I just wanted to be like, just let me go in and visit. And then you started doing like leading worship at different churches. And it got easier to walk in the door, but I was like, kept everybody at arm's length. Like, I'm going to be friendly with them, but I wasn't like, these people weren't my community.
Right.
So I didn't have to like trust anybody.
That was contract.
Yeah, you were just leading, once or twice a month at various churches. And so I think that kind of like got us back in the door and feeling okay with that, I guess. And then, then this opportunity came up to work at our current church. Is that where you were going to go next? I don't want to.
No, I was actually going to go backwards.
Yeah.
Because you brought up our kids.
Yeah.
Right? And this is something that's been on your heart from an early age.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that you and your sister talked about when y'all were young. You know, she ended up adopting a couple of kids
Right.
pretty, well, a few years before us.
Yeah.
But so I'm curious how adoption has like changed you. So we adopted them, their biological brother and sister. We adopted them 2014. Our son was 11 when the adoption finalized. Our daughter was 5, and it's not like they weren't infants.
Yeah.
You know? So right into the thick of parenting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's so many ways that adoption has changed us. Like just parenting in general has changed us in a lot of ways. I think I do. I mean, I remember feeling so strongly that I was supposed to adopt, like more strongly than even if I was supposed to ever get married. I felt like I was supposed to adopt. And I mean, I don't remember if like my sister and I had conversations about that. I'm sure we did at some point, but and I don't even know where that thought came from because I'm not sure I knew a ton of people that were adopted, but it's just something that like always broke my heart. And it was something that I felt like God had put there for a reason. And so it was something I felt strongly about, but I think it was very romanticized in my head about like, it's going to be so great. It's going to be like, some movie where, like a Blind Side kind of situation, you're going to adopt this kid and they're going to just not go through, their life's going to be transformed. And it was a lot harder than I expected. There's just a lot of years of things that kids have been through that, they weren't like a blank slate when they moved in. They had so many things that they had been through that we just couldn't even understand. And we had to take classes to adopt, which I think was probably helpful, but I mean, it's like going to school to learn to be a teacher. Like, yeah, it's kind of helpful, but like when you get in there, it's totally different.
Yeah, like with special education, like any kind of training that they do is based on best case scenario kind of thing happening. It does not at all prepare you for special education,
I think the whole point of those classes was, honestly, I don't think it was best case scenario. I think it was to shock us and get us out if we weren't serious, because they were like, this is going to go wrong and this is going to go wrong. And they told you these things. But I think we all go in thinking like, I hear that this is the case, but maybe with us, it'll be different.
Yeah.
And so I think I thought it was going to be very easy road in a lot of ways. Like, I would tell you like, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be hard. But I think in reality, I had no idea what I was getting into. And the challenges just evolve as kids get older, as it is always with parenting. But yeah, I think it's something where I'm realizing like not everyone should do this. Like you really need to be called to adopt, but are you asking God if that's what you're called to do? Like, are you actually taking that step and saying, do you want this for my family? Because there are so many kids without homes that need a place to stay. Or am I being called to foster? Am I being called to be a respite care? Like, there are things that you can do that are shorter term than adoption, but they're all going to require sacrifice. And, in the same way that we weren't really prepared for adoption, like our kids weren't prepared for it either. They didn't ask to go through that. So we have to give them a lot of grace in that and understanding. And I think counseling has been really, really important for all of us in understanding that, because we've just come from different worlds, and we need to learn to function together. We need to learn to trust each other. And it can be really hard to trust when you've been hurt as many times as, our kids were. So like with all that in mind, it's also been just an amazing thing for us, specifically for me. Like I have loved being a parent, and I'm like tearing up right now. I love our kids. I hate to see them hurt, but I love them so much. And I'm so proud of what they've done with their lives in so many ways. Like, Daniel, our son, he's 22 now, and he's gone into the Navy, and he is doing well with that. Was that what we wanted or would have chosen for him? Probably not. That wasn't what we thought would be the best fit for him, but it seems to be a place that's been really, really good for him in a lot of ways. And Daniel is such a kind kid. He is amazing when he works with like younger kids or with older people. He is so generous in those ways. And it's sometimes he can put on like be a tough guy, like anybody his age, and especially someone who's in the military. But I see that in him. And I also have seen glimpses of like God doing some really cool stuff in him. Like he's had times where he's preached, and that's incredible. Like he's just surprised us in a lot of ways. And Zanaya has so many different things that she's good at. And she's sweet generally, she's a teenage girl, so it can be a roller coaster ride, but she loves kids as well. Like she really, really does. And she wants to be a CPS caseworker. Like I tell her all the time how hard that's going to be. And I feel like if this is what God has put on her heart, then that's what she needs to do. And I think it's really cool that she wants other kids to have a family. Like she wants it so badly for them. We went to a friend's adoption court date the other day, and she was so excited to go. We drove like an hour and a half or almost 2 hours to get there, and she was excited about it. Like she really wanted to go. So she really is thankful for adoption, and that's cool to see. Yeah.
So we also talked just briefly that you are a teacher, and you've been teaching basically for the last 9 years, I think, right?
This is my 9th year, yeah.
This is your 9th year. And so many of your previous life experiences have like affected the way you teach. Like you're not just up there collecting a paycheck. You're kind of like, you've been a mom to a lot of kids throughout the years.
Yeah.
You've also been like a youth leader type person with some of your kids, not saying that you're like imposing, your faith on them, but some of them that were Christian that came to you for help. Like you've been able to pray for kids. But also one of the things that I kind of wanted to bring us toward to close, like, you've gotten really into finances, and you've been able to give financial like advice to kids that are asking about these kind of things. And I think that's so cool, because if people got more into their finances at a younger age, they would have a much better latter portion of life.
Yeah.
Right? Getting started early really, really affects how you do down the road. So, and I think this is also kind of cool. A person that we haven't talked about much is your mom. Your mom was a CPA, she's
an accountant.
Accountant. And you originally were going to college for that, but then changed your mind.
Yeah.
But now, like, you've really become excited about that. And it's been a huge blessing to our family. If you weren't here, if I wasn't married to you, I might have a lot of the cool music stuff that I would like, but I might be homeless, and having no place to put those things,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess what I'd like to do is to give you a few minutes to share maybe 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would give to a young person who is just kind of starting out, with a maybe not their career, but they're working now, and maybe they're getting some bills, that kind of a thing, and just some general pieces of advice for someone in that position, particularly from a Christian standpoint. Obviously, like looking at money as belonging to God, not to us. We want to honor God with the wealth that He's entrusted to our care for a time. But, aside from that, like, what are some basic pieces of advice you would give?
Yeah, there's so many things to understand. Like, I feel like understanding your finances is like this layered thing where you kind of understand a little more with time. But I think in general, there's kind of like this conventional wisdom of like 50% for needs of your money of take-home pay, 30% for wants, and 20% for like savings, or you could say savings / part of your money that you're giving. I think if you're saving up maybe 10 to 20% from an early time, then it helps you to not be as stressed down the road. And like, it's not that it's taking away your dependence on God, because the same amount of money is coming in, whether you're blowing through it or whether you're saving it, right? The same money is passing through your fingers, but are you being a good steward of it? And there's so much unnecessary stress that not just young people go through in general, that if they would prepare properly, then you can remove some of that. Now, life happens. Life is challenging. You can't prepare necessarily at 21 years old for having like a major car accident or like having a medical emergency. You may not have that set aside, but you and I have been through different periods. We're in our 40s now, and both of us have been without work at different times. It is almost inevitable that that's going to happen at some point, whether that's through quitting your job, whether that's through being fired. It is very likely going to happen at some point that you will be without work. So if you are living paycheck to paycheck, then you're not prepared for something that is very inevitable. So to have some money in savings is essential. They talk about having a $1,000 emergency fund. I think that's a good starting point, but I think that you probably need more than that, just to be able to cover maybe a couple of paychecks. Make sure that you can have some money in case you are without a paycheck for a little bit. Did you have something you were going to say?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I was out of work in 17 or 19 from March of 17 to almost the beginning of September of 17.
Yeah.
And that was like 5 months, I think, right?
Yeah. Without your main job, you still had some side
hustles, but like, $1,000, that's nice, but that would go just
it goes really fast.
Immediately.
And even if you're not without work, like if you have a car accident, $1,000 doesn't get you very far, but it is better than most people have. Like the majority of people have nothing, that they can't even pay for a $400 emergency if they needed to. So it's really important to set aside some money for that, while at the same time being generous while giving to God, because it is all God's. So this is kind of where it takes a little bit of, listening to God. And, I think the 10% is not a bad starting place, giving. Maybe we don't tithe necessarily using that terminology, but we're giving 10% to the Lord, whether that's to your local church or whether that's to blessing people that are in need or whatever it might be. We need to start with that, knowing that it's just a reminder all the time that this isn't my money. I'm being called to steward it. So am I stewarding it well? I think it's important to track things. Like I think, maybe you need a budgeting app or something like that can help you out. But also, I think if you're struggling financially, one of the things that's really easy to do is remove your financial information from your computer and from your phone so that it puts a little bit of friction between you and your purchase. So you can't just scroll on Amazon in the middle of the night and buy stuff. You would have to get up out of your bed, input your credit card information manually, and that little bit of friction causes you to potentially wait and not buy something. Or telling yourself, I'll wait 24 to 72 hours before I make these kind of purchases. And if you still feel like you need that purchase at the end of that time, then maybe go ahead and buy it. But creating some friction is never a bad thing. It helps us to kind of prioritize things and take a minute and slow down where it's so easy. I mean, I pay for stuff with my phone. Now, I'm not trying to say that I don't, but this is kind of the same idea as like the cash envelope system. Paying with cash, it feels more real. And it doesn't feel real when you can take, half a second and pay for something with tap to pay, or it's already pre-programmed in and you don't have to do anything but click the button on the side of your phone. So putting a little extra friction in there, and try and think of some ways that you can make a little bit of extra money. So whether that's through maybe doing DoorDash or maybe even donating plasma. I did that in college. Maybe...
Don't sell your body, guys.
Yeah. But looking for ways that you can maybe earn a little bit extra so that you can set that aside and reevaluating your spending. The biggest things that eat up our money your top three are usually going to be your transportation, your house, and your food. And while we need food and we need shelter and we need a way to get to and from work, we don't necessarily need to spend the way that we do on those things. So can I evaluate like taking my rent down from $3,000 a month? Can I find a place that's half that price, or can I get a roommate? Those are big ways to set aside a little bit of extra money.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to do all this today.
Of course.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I was just thinking that it would be cool to end this by asking you to share with the people maybe 2 things that they could pray for you about.
Man. Okay. Regarding the financial stuff, I could use some prayer because I really enjoy it. And I don't know if that's an enjoyment that just means I need to look into it more and understand it more and maybe just kind of help people on the side, or if that means it might be time to look into changing and doing something different with my career. I could use some prayer for like discerning that, understanding what that might look like. I'm generally happy with my job. I really feel like I've been placed there by God for a time. And, but yeah, I don't know what the next step is. It was always like when Zanaya graduates, I might do something different. So I'm not saying I will, but it would be really cool if God made it very clear what the next step might be. And then, yeah, I feel like that I would make the most of the time that I have left with my daughter in high school. I heard some statistic that like generally by the time your kid is 18, you've spent like 90% of the time that you're going to spend with them. And that's really sad 'cause she's about to turn 17. And I mean, whenever she moves out, I don't know if that'll be at 18 or after high school or what, but this time is precious and I need to really take advantage of that. So those are 2 things I think and that are coming to mind. Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. Just kind of in wrapping this up, I guess, we talked about these churches experiences that we've been through and how they've been really hard. And it's been super cool to see how God has brought you back into a position in the church. And it became really clear that it was the right thing, even though I was like kind of digging my heels in as the discussions began of that. But yeah, I'm just really thankful for the place that God has brought you to and what it's meant for our family, because I don't feel anxious at all when I walk into church. And that is a new feeling for me. And I look forward to it every Sunday. I get excited about it. I used to kind of dread Sundays because of the church stuff. And then also, obviously, like you go back to work the next day. So Sunday leads to Monday. But I look forward to Sundays now. And I've been really, really blessed by the people at our church and just, seeing how God has brought these relationships. And then our church went through like a merge or a marriage with another church. And just, it's been like my family just grew. Like it's been this exciting thing that's been hard in some ways, I'm sure, but I haven't noticed the hard as much. But it's been just a huge blessing to us. And it has like to watch my daughter go from not wanting to really attend church because she didn't feel comfortable to not only looking forward to it, to, being happy to go, and now like serving on the AV team and serving in the children's ministry and happily going to youth group. This is just like a huge transformation. And it's been a really like kind gift from God because I didn't know if I'd ever feel like this again in a church. So, I just want to make sure that we put that in there because I don't want to be negative about church. Like church is a really amazing thing. And the body of believers, when it's functioning properly, is just so essential for us.
15 years, they fly by like eyes are blinking. When we were low, we held hope to keep from sinking. There's no one I could find who'd be so fine with all my dreaming. I've got divine alignment on my mind. Seas get rough, not always smooth for sailing. A test of love, young lust got overtaken. You'll always be the one for me. You know I'd never trade you. I've got divine alignment on my mind. If you ever find somebody like my woman, don't let it pass you by, 'cause that would be a crime. More than 5 short of old Ulysses. Ain't no civil war keeping union through our 60s. Even though I know that we can throw like 2 grown grizzlies, I've got divine alignment on my mind.